You know, when I first started looking into this whole furniture restoration thing for our deep dive, I have to admit I was picturing those reality TV shows.
Oh, right, where they just slap on some paint and call it good.
Exactly. But digging into this RoleCatcher guide on becoming a furniture restorer, talk about eye-opening. I had no idea how much goes on behind the scenes, like with the furniture itself, but also the whole field.
It really is so much more than just a quick makeover. What I find fascinating is how much it's tied into, well, everything. History, art, even science. You can't be a good restorer just by being handy. You have to think like a historical detective almost.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Walk me through this whole detective thing. Like, say you've got a gorgeous old armchair, seen better days, obviously. What's the first thing a restorer would actually do?
Well, it all starts with those first impressions, but not what you'd think. I mean, before even thinking about fixing anything, a good restorer is going to be checking it out, almost like a forensic investigator, I guess.
Okay, getting serious.
Right. What kind of wood did they use?
Yeah.
How are the joints put together? Is the upholstery original? And what's it telling us? It's all the details. Those are like fingerprints telling you how old the piece is, where it might be from, what style it fits into.
So, like, if it's oak with, what are those joints called? Dovetail.
Yes, dovetail joints.
Right, so if it's oak with dovetail joints, that tells you something different than, say, mahogany with something else.
Oh, you got it. See, those construction methods, they changed over time. Dovetails were big in like really good furniture before they had factories, before the Industrial Revolution. Then later on, you'd see more dowels being used. And then on top of that, you've got the style itself. Is it Queen Anne, Arts and Crafts, Art Deco? Knowing the different design movements from each period, that's key.
Hold on, back up a sec, arts and crafts. That sounds familiar, but give me a refresher. What exactly was that all about?
Oh, sure. Arts and crafts, that was a whole movement. Late 1800s. It was all about pushing back against mass production. So think handcrafted furniture, simple lines, often with those nature-y designs, like a rebellion against all that ornate Victorian stuff that came before.
Yeah.
So if you find an armchair with those arts and crafts traits, boom, you've got a starting point for its whole story, which helps guide how you restore it.
It's like every piece of furniture is a puzzle, and you're using these historical clues to put it all together. No wonder this guide was talking about analyzing the wood and doing historical research as part of the job. But that's got to come with its own challenges too, right?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the biggest ones is finding that balance between restoring something and preserving it. You want to bring it back to life, but you don't want to erase its history in the process.
Right, like you don't want it to look brand new.
Exactly. Take a damaged finish, for instance. It might be tempting to just strip it all off and start fresh, but that original finish, even if it's faded or cracked, it's part of the story. It tells you something about where that piece has been.
Wow, so it's this delicate dance between getting it back to its former glory and respecting what it's been through. That sounds incredibly challenging, but also really rewarding.
You nailed it. That's a big part of what draws people to this line of work. That allure of bringing these, well, they're almost like these silent witnesses to history, bringing them back to life. But I'll tell you, it's not for the faint of heart.
So you've got this piece, you've examined it, you know its history, now you have to actually fix it. What's next?
Well, it's not as simple as just slapping on some wood glue, right? Although I guess the right glue is important.
More than just Elmer's.
A whole lot more.
Mm.
A good restorer has to know all about the old glues and the new stuff, too. Like hide glue, they use that for ages on antique furniture.
Hide glue.
Yeah, hide glue, it's reversible. If you need to undo a repair later on down the line, you can. Just heat it up a bit, and you're good to go. That's really important for, doing restoration the right way, ethically. I mean, making sure you respect the piece.
So it's like being a furniture surgeon or something. You need that steady hand, all the knowledge, and you got to pick the method that's least invasive, I guess, whenever you can.
Huh, I like that, a furniture surgeon. And, just like in medicine, technology is really changing the game when it comes to restoring furniture. Remember those hidden clues we were talking about before? Sometimes they're really hidden, like under layers of paint, or even inside the wood itself. That's when things get really high-tech.
Yeah, the guide I read mentioned these advanced imaging techniques. What's that all about? How does that even work?
It's incredible. One of the methods is called dendrochronology.
Danger what now?
Dendrochronology. Basically, it's tree ring dating. You can look at the growth rings in a piece of wood and figure out not only when that tree was chopped down, but sometimes even where it came from.
Whoa, so you can give a piece of furniture like its own birth certificate almost.
Exactly. And if you're working with a piece that has a really complicated history, there's another method, X-ray fluorescence spectrometry.
Gotcha.
Right, XRF for short. It helps figure out what's in pigments and finishes, so you can see if there were repairs or changes made over time.
So you could find like a layer of paint from the 1700s under a newer coat of paint. So it was like restyled or something.
Exactly. It's like you're peeling back layers of history. And then there's also infrared photography, which lets you see things like the wood grain underneath or repairs that are hidden under layers of paint. It's like you're giving these old pieces X-ray vision.
That's wild. But something tells me these techniques aren't exactly cheap or easy to come by. It's not like your average workshop has all this technology just lying around.
True, some of this stuff is still making its way from, museums and research labs to regular restorers, but it's getting easier to access all the time, which is great.
Shows you how the field's changing, right? You've got the traditional skills, but also this cutting edge technology. But at the end of the day, you still need a human touch, right? Machines can't do it all. So what makes someone really good at furniture restoration? What kind of qualities do they need? It seems like it takes a special kind of person to do this well, to be a furniture restorer. I mean, it's got to be more than just knowing the technical stuff, right?
Oh, for sure. For one thing, you need patience, buckets of it. Some of these restorations, they can take months, years even, to finish. And you're often working on these tiny little details.
Yeah, so not the best job if you're like impatient.
Not at all. And you need a good eye, steady hands, a real love for history, how things are made.
Yeah.
And you got to be a problem solver, no two ways about it. Every piece of furniture, it's its own puzzle.
Yeah.
You got to be creative and able to adapt.
So it's almost like you're part artist, part historian, part detective, part engineer,
Yeah.
all in one person.
That's a great way to put it. I think it's that mix of skills and just a passion for it that makes it so interesting. It's more than just fixing something. It's saving a piece of the past, giving it a whole new life.
Yeah, that's what's really sticking with me, this idea of bringing something back. It's like these pieces of furniture, they've witnessed history, and now you're bringing them back into the conversation, even if they can't actually talk.
It's a unique connection for sure. And, anyone can start to see that, even if they don't have their own workshop. Go to a museum and antique shop. Really look at the pieces there. Pay attention to what we talked about, the wood, the joints, the finishes. And think about when it's from, what was going on back then, what can those details tell you?
So we're all armchair detectives now, but instead of crimes, we're trying to figure out furniture. I like it.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask questions. The people who work in those places, they usually love to talk about that stuff, share what they know. You never know what you might find out just by being curious.
And for those people listening who are thinking, okay, but how do I actually do this myself? Like, get hands-on, not just look.
There's a ton of stuff out there. Workshops, classes, even online if you'd rather. They've got everything from the basics, if you're just starting out, to some really specialized techniques.
So you could go from admiring these amazing pieces to actually knowing how to fix them yourself.
That's got to be so rewarding.
Mhm.
Well, I got to say, I've learned a lot in this deep dive. Got a whole new appreciation for furniture restoration. The history, the artistry, how much work goes into it. Don't know if I'll be setting up my own workshop anytime soon, but I'm definitely going to be looking at antique furniture with a new set of eyes from now on.
And who knows, maybe there's someone out there listening right now who's going to be the next big furniture restorer, using those old skills and the new technology to keep these pieces of the past alive.
Yeah, if that's you, we're rooting for you. The world needs more people who get it, who appreciate the beauty and craftsmanship of older times.
Yeah.
Until next time, happy restoring, everyone.